This is my vampire story. It still baffles my mind when I think of that, say that, and I still get the creeps with the memory of any of this. And I'm going to be a little bit cryptic if you get my drift with regards to some of the experiences, but several decades ago, I had lost my job. I had just had my baby girl, so she's going to be 30 this year. So that's how long it's been. And I had gotten a job interview at a local business. Again, I'm not going to say what kind of business. And I went to this interview and I immediately felt something odd with the owner of this business. There was something so mesmerizing about him. He wasn't good looking, but he was good looking. It's hard to explain. Like, there was just something strange about him, and he just felt almost hypnotic. And he said, I'm interviewing for a couple more people, and I'll give you a call in a couple days and let you know if you get the job. Okay, I did get the job. A couple days later, he gave me a phone call and he said, I am offering you this job at this pay. And it wasn't bad. The hours weren't bad. The pay wasn't bad. And I said, let me think about it. I had another offer on the table and he said, please let me know by tomorrow. And I'm like, understood. So I had called my mom, and my mom was very intuitive, even though she didn't really want to admit that she would. And I told her, and I'm like, I got this job offer, and I didn't even tell her a lot of like the creepiness that this guy kind of gave me. And she's like, Christy, I have a really bad feeling. Do not accept this job. Do not accept the job. I'm telling you right now, something's not right. Do not accept this job. Now, this is a business that was in the person's family for a long time. And so it wasn't anything out of, it wasn't like a starter company. This person was kind of known in the community. My mom didn't know him, but so it was a substantial, real job. And I'm like, Mom, I don't understand. I need a job. She's like, you're gonna get a job offer from that other place that you interviewed for. Just stick it out, tell this guy no, and accept the other job once it comes. And I'm like, this job was actually, it was pretty good, but I took my mom's advice and I called the gentleman the next day and I said, I'm so sorry. I am really honored, but I'm declining the job offer. And thank you very much for your time. And he's like, I will double your pay. Excuse me, sir. I will double your pay. Now, it already was good pay, but double the pay was a lot of pay. And I'm like, again, something felt really off. And I'm like, sir, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna decline. And he's like, I'm gonna check with you in a couple days. And there was just something very ominous about the way that he said that. And that night, I ended up having a dream with him in it. And it was very vampire-ish, is the only way that I can describe it. And the business that he was in also spoke volumes for that. So a couple days later, he called me and I said, again, sir, I've accepted another job. And I did not tell him with whom. And he's like, I will triple your salary. And I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. And he said, I can tell that you are very psychic, and I can tell that you know who I am and what I am. And I think it would behoove you to take this job. What? So I told him again, no, thank you. And he said, okay. Now this was like, internet wasn't really a thing. Like, you couldn't really look people up. There was AOL chat and such like that, but you couldn't really look people up like you can now. And so I ended up accepting a job at a cabinet store and as an office manager. And I didn't hear from him, but I was still having these weird nightmares with him. And I'm like, it's just gotta be in my head, right? But it was almost like he could read my mind. It was very strange. Well, guess who showed up at the kitchen store the second day that I started? Yeah, this guy. And it's like he knew that I was gonna be there. He said, hi, Christy. And I'm like, excuse me, are you stalking me? Like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm ordering a new kitchen for the business. Like, it was nothing. And he continued to come in my dreams. About a year later, I ended up taking a job at a fireplace store as an office manager. A couple days into that, this gentleman walks in and says, I need a new fireplace for my business. Excuse me? Now, I'm not gonna say everything about the business and everything about him, but you might be able to figure it out with a clue. And that is, he lived above the business. That's all I'm gonna say. So he's like, yep, I need a fireplace. And I'm like, sure, I don't understand why you're here. And he continued every time. He's like, would you like to work with me? I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm good. I worked at the fireplace store for a couple years, and he would every once in a while call and he would ask for the fireplace to be serviced. And I ended up telling my boss at the time, like, how I felt about him. And he would laugh and he's like, I'm gonna send you out there with the tech. And I'm like, no, you're not. But he was like, yes, something strange about this person. Something is almost like immortal. Even if you look at the family lineage, it's like he's existed before, and it wasn't like his great-great-grandfather, it was like him. So I ended up quitting a couple years after that, and I worked for a school district. And guess who showed up at the admin office? Him. And in the meantime, he's still coming in my dreams. And every once in a while, he's still calling me and asking me if I want a job. No, my mom had passed away. I got a divorce. I mean, we are eons into this. And I ended up running into him at a store, and he, like, do you remember everybody you interviewed like one time? Because he either has a really crazy memory or it wasn't like a stalker. He just wasn't. That wasn't the case. It's just, again, it was very vampirous. Dick, is that a word? And so I ran into him and he's like, hi, Christy. And he's like, how are you doing? And it was just very kind of Norman Bates, creepy. I ended up, in the job that I'm in now, I'm a professional psychic medium. I ended up having to go to a competitor of his to work on a case. And we ended up talking about this gentleman and his business, and I didn't say anything, but the owner of this establishment went, just, Christy, make sure you stay away from him, because he's a vampire. And I didn't laugh, and she didn't laugh, and she knew I knew. And I knew she do too. So vampires do exist, and they don't necessarily wear capes. Sometimes they wear business suits, and sometimes they invade your dreams. And I feel as if there's a possibility that my life at that time was a little bit crazy, and it was because of the psychic, sort of like a vampire energy that he was sending to me because he was mad that I did not accept a job with him.
This happened on Fat Tuesday, and this story came from a girl named Ness and her sister Jen. Ness and Jen are partying, raging, having a great time when they meet this light-skinned black man with these amazing green eyes. Literally, how she described him. She said his eyes were mesmerizing. She said eventually his attention drifted to her sister Jen, even though they were both kind of feeling him. This is an all-day event. They had been drinking all day, partying all day, bar hopping all day. So they're talking to him for a little while, and they decide they're gonna change venue. So they're going bar to bar, and a little while later, they end up this other bar, and they're standing in line to get in. When all of a sudden, they see him again, she said they must have just not noticed him at first, but he was also in line to get in this bar. He's in line behind them, so they turn around. They start talking to him, and when it comes time for them to go in, he gestures for them to go in first. From that point on, they were like hanging out with him. So he was going bar to bar with them. Every time they went to a new bar, he would let them go in first. But before they would go into each bar, he would ask them like, do you want me to come in too? And she said, Jen always answered the same way, which was, yeah, come on in. So the three of them stay out late, like late, and the night is wearing down. All the people are starting to turn in for the night. Ness and her sister are like pretty wasted. So they're like, we're gonna go back to our hotel. And he's like, do you want me to walk you back? They're like, okay. We love a gentleman, so they let him walk them back to the hotel. When they get to the hotel, he takes Jen's hand in the middle of the street and starts slow dancing with her. She said they were in like a drunken haze, so it just added this other layer of like a magical evening. And they didn't really think anything of it. But then he leans into her neck, and he opens his mouth as if he's about to bite her. His teeth like barely grazed her neck, and she jerks back, and she's like, I'm sorry. Like, I wasn't looking for anything, I was just having fun. Like, I wasn't looking for anything like that. He's just staring at her, and she said he had this look of defeat on his face, but like there was another expression too, which they didn't know what it was. and maybe it was just the streetlights. But she says she swears his face shifted. And this is such a common theme in all of these stories, I'm realizing. And he says, "May I come in?" And Ned says that both of them just got a chill. Like, they talked about it afterward. A chill ran through both of their bodies. Jen snaps out of whatever trance she's in, and she just says no for very firmly. Literally, the moment that the word left her lips, he just turned and started walking down the street. No goodbye. Nothing after they had spent hours and hours together. So they turn to look at each other and they're like, "That was weird." And they turn back and he's just gone. Like, he just vanished into thin air. They scan the street, don't see any trace of him. So after she sent me the story, I emailed her back and I was like, "Can I just ask you how you came to the conclusion that he was a vampire and not just like a weirdo?" And she was like, "Because he asked us so specifically if he could come in everywhere we were going." She said most people would have just gone bar to bar, like not needing permission to enter, but his hesitation was very apparent, like it was public party. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. He also had very sharp, pointy canine teeth, which she said she's aware that some people have this, but that they thought the coincidence was too weird. Another thing, and then at the end of the night, instead of going in for a kiss or whatever, if you think you're vibing with this girl, you're just gonna try to bite her neck. Apparently, he was wearing an Eagles hoodie, and at some point in the night, they had asked him, like, where he's from, and he said, "I've lived here longer than you can imagine." I don't know. Apparently, vampires are Eagles fans.
Girl named Nicole emailed me, and she said that she was brought to this vampire's nest or vampire's lair when she was at Carnival in Trinidad, and she met this guy. She described herself as someone with very energy. Think like Sookie from True Blood. She's a holistic wellness practitioner. She takes very good care of her mind and her body, and she knows to protect herself spiritually when she goes into large crowd. She says, as someone who is very in touch with her spirituality, she knows that there are good forces and bad forces. But this story specifically is about a time that she encountered someone who is not human when she went to Carnival in Trinidad alone. Anyway, pretty much immediately after Nicole gets there, she meets these two guys and they're cousins, and they are off the bat competing for her attention. They were both way into her. They were fun, so she gave her phone number to both of them. Over the course of the celebration, they were constantly texting her, calling her, trying to meet up, going to all the same events she was going to. And they were both attractive and really fun. But eventually, she decided which one she was more into, and she's calling him Dracula for the story. I can't make this up. It's so funny. That's obviously not his real name. But Dracula is well-dressed. He's buying her everything she wants, food, drinks, he's like, "What else can I do for you?" Said he was charming, well-dressed, big spender. And by the end of Carnival, he asked her if she wants to go to the beach with him, and she says yes. She said by this point, her energy levels were not where they're normally at because she had been drinking and partying for 5 or 6 days straight. So the beach seems like a nice little break from everything. They're on the beach. She's laying there taking it all in. He's smoking a cigar. She said it was just a mood. The waves, the sun setting, the music playing in the background. They were laughing. They were vibing, but then something just fell off. He was playing music, but it was strange. It was hypnotic. It felt like it was trying to, sink into her and shift her consciousness, if that makes sense. She thinks that maybe she's just tired. So she looks at him, and she's like, "This music is really hypnotic. Are you trying to hypnotize me?" He laughed it off. He's like, "No, you're probably just tired. Let's go back to my penthouse and you can change and we can rinse off and then we'll go to dinner."
She's like that.
At this point, she'd known him for 5 or 6 days and she wanted to see his place anyway. So she gets there and she is just taken aback. The place was gorgeous, floor to ceiling, windows, top floor. He's like, "Do you want to see my balcony?" So they walk out there and it's overlooking the beach. It's gorgeous. But then she said energy shifted. Something was wrong. She just had this gut feeling that somebody else was in the penthouse. And she's like, "Is somebody else here?" And he's like, "No." She said the air felt thick. She knew somebody else was inside. And she's like, "Are you sure nobody else is here?" And he says, "No." She says she can't explain it, but she just knew he was lying. And then she heard it, which was the same hypnotic music that he was playing on the beach, but it was playing from inside his penthouse. She hadn't clocked it when she first walked in, but she realized that it had been playing the entire time they were there. So she was like, if nobody else is here, then why is the music already playing? He's like, I don't know. I guess somebody left it on. So she turns to look at him and she said, I swear his eyes were glowing in, like, an unnatural way. Not from, like, hitting them. They were just glowing. When she looked at him, he smiled at her and she saw his face shift. One thing I'm noticing about a lot of these vampire stories is that people talk about faces shifting. What I think about when I read these stories of people's faces shifting is, like, have you ever seen those AI videos where, like, AI is trying to come up with an image or it's, like, transforming images and, like, it doesn't seem to get the face right. Like, something is just off about it. That's what I pictured when she said his face shifted. She said it was like something was hiding underneath his skin, and every single alarm bell in her body was ringing, like, get out of here now. So she starts walking toward the door, because she's like, I have to get out of here. And he's like, where are you going? She's like, oh, I think I dropped my earring, like it might be in the hallway. And so she walks out of the apartment, runs to the elevator, hits the button, and by some miracle, it's on the same floor. And she gets in, and hits like the door close button. She gets down to the lobby and Dracula starts blowing up her phone. So she answers and he's like, where'd you go? And she's like, I love these earrings. I'm gonna try to find it. I'll just meet you at the restaurant. Like, she's trying to play it casual. There's like still people on the street. It's not this desolate area. So she runs behind this other building or something and she's watching the apartment doors. She said she just wanted to see. So he comes out. She sees him looking around for her, and then he goes back in. And a few minutes later, the same cousin that she had met with him earlier in Carnival comes out. And she said she knew in that moment, she knew that the whole thing was a setup. She said she shared her story as a cautionary tale because large celebrations like Carnival or Mardi Gras are for more than just partygoers. There are people there that are into energy harvesting, that are into rituals, and they're looking for victims. She said when thousands of people are gathered together drinking, dancing, raging, the energy is high, but it's also easily manipulated by people who know how to do it. She said we're all born with intuition, so don't be afraid to trust your gut and never assume that everyone around you has good intentions.